Okay, let's get this meeting started. We are dedicating a new novel.
It kills bugs too. Right.
Let's start off and calling this to order. Let's have a pledge of allegiance. Stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, it's our custom, around introducing ourselves. And Dan, would you like to do?
Sure. I'm Dan Pence. I'm the registrar.
Dan, you have a deep voice today.
Yeah, what's left of it.
Nancy Davis, Deputy Registrar. Trish Jones, Deputy Registrar.
Betty Gibbs, Secretary of the Electoral Board.
David Levy, Chairman of the Electoral Board.
Steve Troxel, Vice Chair of the Electoral Board.
Greg Berry, citizen.
Roz Webb, Judith Barrett, citizen. Cora Separabi, citizen.
Zaffarati, citizen.
Carol Stronico, citizen.
Jeff Rosner, Lynchburg Democratic Committee, authorized representative and voter protection liaison.
Thank you all for being here. Now, we have an agenda, and we're proceeding along with the agenda. Do I need a motion to approve the agenda for this meeting?
I'll give you one.
Good. And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. We have the minutes from the January 7th meeting. Is there any unreadiness on the minutes? We have the minutes for the closed meeting on January 13th. No, we have the minutes.
Yes.
And we also had a closed meeting on January 31st. Both of the closed meetings have certifications in the Do I have a motion for approval of those three?
I move that motion.
I second. All in favor? Okay. Do we have, I think, we have an announcement about a new employee.
Sure. I was going to say that a little later, but let's not, hold up. I'd like you all to meet, and I know most of you know, Trish Jones. And we've done a screening process to, open it up to whoever wanted to apply. And Trish came in top rank. So not surprised, as you know, she's been a chief in the city for a number of years now. She's been an election official. She's been key in helping us in the latest recount. And what else did we do? We did an RLA. So we did a bunch of exercises as well as helping us get off of all the SDRs, which I know some also you also help with. So you remember what that's like. And so anyway, so she's going to be joining us full time. She's gone down to the clerk. She's taken her oaths. So she is official, and she is starting with the city this coming week. So
Thank you.
welcome and blessings on your position.
Thank,
Okay, if I close the door.
Yeah, sure.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sure.
thank you, Dan, for that introduction. Are there other announcements?
My only other announcement is just that we're going to be, the city will be closed on President's Day coming up, so we'll be closed that day.
Was that Monday?
That's Monday, the 20th. I'm pretty sure that's the 20th. 17th.
That's 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's right. It's not this coming week, it's the week after.
Okay, good. When does early voting open?
May 2nd.
May 2nd.
Assuming we have a primary, which we have not been notified by the Department of Elections as of yet, that we will have one. I think we all believe it's likely. But we have not got the official word yet.
Okay, shall we march on into the registrar's report?
Sure, let me go ahead and put this on the screen if I can. Let's see. Is that- Oh, wait, can I get a slide now? Oh, there it is. Sorry, just. Okay, there we go. All right, registrar report for February 6th, 2025. We have our normal statistical report, budgetary reports, all our projects and announcements. Um, First report is the register of accounts by locality. This is a report that gets run basically on, at the end of the month. I run it every month. And so I read it again, as you see it, as of the 30th. This report shows the changes from the Department of Elections purge of inactive voters. So you'll notice that we actually have, 57,000 total voters, 55 inactive. And that's compared to, I'll show you the next slide, which will compare the two, but this gives you a sense of kind of where we are with our active voters at this point. And the inactive list has been trimmed. So the next slide, I show a comparison. It's a little bit busy, so sorry about that, but I'd rather just give you the delta. I want you to kind of see the difference. You'll notice that it's essentially in the inactive list, we've dropped by about half. And in the case of 302, which is our, was our largest precinct with inactives, we've dropped by well more than half. So we're down to, in 302, we're down to 152 inactive, which is actually kind of amazing. And you'll see at the bottom there, we had 6,300 inactive and change, and we now are down to 2,000, just over 2,000. And that moves our overall numbers from 61,000 down to 57,107.
Can you speak a little louder so they can?
I'm sorry, I'll turn a little bit.
Now that you have this deep voice,
Yeah.
first you started off really loud.
Okay. Any questions on that slide?
Is there anybody on? I'm confused.
I only have two participants. That would be this and this.
Okay. We know.
No questions on that.
Okay.
Let's move into.
Yep. Okay, locality statistics. This basically also shows the same information in another view. As you remember, this is the check per precinct of what goes in and out of the voter registration counts. And you'll notice that in the reg purge count, column rather, which almost never has anything in it, now we have all of the numbers that were touched by the purge after the second federal election. So, and everybody understands it's two federal elections. If you're inactive for two federal elections, then that takes you off the roll. So the Department of Elections will go through and take anybody off the rolls that's been inactive for two federals.
If mail has been returned.
Right, so let's walk into that a little bit. So inactive voters only become inactive by us losing track of them by mail. So what that means is that if we send you a mailing in the course of regular business and it comes back as undeliverable, then we will mark that mailing as undeliverable. And then the Department of Elections will, in their cycle, send out a second notice to that mail address. And that's their confirmation mailing to just double check and make sure that the person's not really there. People sometimes do come back and let us know that, oh, wait, I'm still here, or, whatever they notify us, and then they get taken off the list. But those who are not respond and don't respond get moved into the inactive status, and they'll stay there until they either re-register or cancel or something else. or the process like this goes on and then takes them off the list after the second federal. But yes, to Betty's point, we are dependent on the mail system for this process, right? So what that means is if someone is still accepting mail for somebody at a particular address, and we don't get the mail returned, then we would have no way of knowing that someone is not there. And there's certainly cases where that's happened. I mean, kids going to school or family members taking mail for family members, and we just have no way of knowing that they're no longer there. So, and they would not be inactive because we haven't got the and if they have email, okay. Meaning if we can contact them by email, right? We can, yeah. Right, we can take them off that way. Okay, any questions on this chart here? Okay. We're starting over with our NVRA report. This just basically captures the sources of where we get our different registration applications. As always, we have them from the DMV that are the most prolific, but elsewhere we get them from various different sources. And they'll come into the office in paper, or in the case of DMV, it's all electronic. And then we process them and they go through. I got an email from an annoyed voter, okay, an annoyed person who didn't want to be a voter today. Who said, yeah, Trisha's smiling, because I forwarded on to them to go ahead and send them the cancellation notice. He said, I never wanted to be a voter, but somehow I got a notice that I'm a voter and I don't want to be a voter. I'm like, okay, probably you did something in the DMV and you got a notice from the DMV, or we got a notice from us, but because you got registered from being the DMV. So anyway, hopefully we can keep people who don't want to be voters.
Did they vote in the last election?
I didn't check that actually. I don't know if you guys checked this. Yeah, I mean, I think he did because probably he just got registered, right? So we sent him a notice, the notice that he's registered. So anyway, any more questions on this?
That's good.
Okay, department budget, just as you have seen before, we've kind of cranked through most of our budget this year. The November election kind of ate up a big chunk of that. If we do have a primary, we're probably going to be running in the red. And we'll have to tackle that as we get to that point. But, just myself looking over this, the things that jump out at me are the 55500 category. I need to dig into a little bit of the details here to try and figure out why we're spending so much, and the answer is this is election supplies, stuff that we had to get in order to actually run the election. Every time we have to do an SDR, we have to send something out in an envelope, and we have to buy those envelopes, and we have to, all of the stuff that takes to copy and print and all that stuff. So I just, when you have a big election, it runs up a lot of cost. And the same thing is true for, let me go back down here to the same category in under the electoral board, except in this case, we had allocated $20,000, which normally is good for the ballots. Really, it's costing, most of its cost is for the ballots, because ballots cost some money. But in this case, we kind of blew through the $20,000. We're up about $29,000 for the ballots for this year. So that's why those numbers are the way they are. At the end, you can see down at the bottom there, we are about 82% of our budget. So we still have all the way through June to get through. So we're, like I said, we're running pretty hot in our budget here. Any questions on this? Okay. We talked last time about the SDR and some of the problems we have with SDRs being undeliverable. So went ahead and did a little bit of trap some numbers just to see, if we could figure out some trends or patterns here. So the numbers across the top, basically you can see each category. I put kind of what it is. So on the left-hand side, we had 2,200 mail pieces go out. That was via BMS. That's our normal vendor for sending out notices. Now, there's not 100% correlation between what we sent and what we got back, because remember, the post office sends us back stuff whenever they want. I mean, it could be within a couple of days or a week, it could be 3 weeks. We get stuff back undeliverable from the post office literally months later sometimes. So it's very hard for me to put a one-to-one correlation. But we tried to do at least some basic idea. So we went out and sent out about 2,200. If we use that as our number going out in December, and we started tracking what we're getting back, we had a total returns undeliverable of 224, which is around the 10% return rate. Then we broke it down into undeliverables that were matching up to someone who had done an SDR, a same day registration, and also those who had not done same day registration. And you can see we're about 63% of the SDRs as being undeliverable, which is to me a little kind of surprisingly high number, considering that if someone does an SDR, you'd think they are, they wouldn't move within the month, right? We're sending a notice out, you think they would still be there.
Now, Dan, what was the 2,200 account of? What did you also?
That's the number of mail pieces we sent out in December.
To whom, for what purpose?
That was the total number of mail pieces, and we didn't break it down by what we sent them for. We just counted how many we sent out and how many we got back. And then
Were they sent out to verify addresses or something?
they would be sent out as basically a confirmation that they were that their people were registered as an SDR, or that, I mean, that's most of what they would have been.
I'm curious about these
Are
proposals.
provisionals?
Sorry, go ahead.
Are provisionals that we sent out to people?
Yes, the division would have been probably in that count as well.
So that's why I'm trying to
This,
figure out
non-SDR.
SDR and non-SDR. That would make sense.
So as they came back, what Trish was doing was looking each person up and determining whether or not they'd done an SDR or not,
Right.
right? So look, there's a bunch of different dimensions you could do some analysis on. We didn't try and break it down under another dimension. We just decided we were going to look at SDRs because we felt that was an interesting metric. So we just checked.
It's because we recorded their addresses incorrectly.
So this is partly what I wanted to drill into a little deeper, right? Which is, you'll notice that if you keep going across in the chart, that the undeliverables that were from Liberty University and they were SDRs were 62% of the total SDRs, right? So if you look at the blue column, the blue two columns, there were 58 of those, and there are 35 of the non-LU SDR undeliverables, right? So that means that 62, like I said, just as best as we can estimate, 62% were of the SDRs that came back were from Liberty's students, Liberty addresses. And then on the far right there, we have LU non-SDRs and non-LU non-SDRs undeliverable. So there was a lot of non-SDR undeliverables, right? But the fact that we had a good chunk in those blue columns in the middle of LU SDRs being undeliverable tells us that we have a problem there, right? So my commentary, there's not an exact correlation between the number of mail pieces sent and return mail. So if you don't have a defined timeline for how long the mail takes to get returned, right? So this is a rough idea, not a precise, metric. But the return mail covers what was returned through the end of January. And that seems to be the most of the return mail from the SDRs and other things, because it's been a significant drop off of return mail toward the end of January. We got, early on, we were getting, 20, 50, something like that, more a day. And then it went down to, just a handful. There are more non-SDR undeliverables overall, but for this time period, nearly half of the return mail was from SDRs, which is kind of concerning. Of the SDR undeliverables, the majority of them are from Liberty University, indicating there's a problem with reaching students by mail at Liberty. So I had a follow-up conversation with Kenny Craig over there, and we've identified a couple of different problems. Probably some of them you're already kind of aware of. Number one, students have a Flames box only as long as they are living on campus. So when they move off campus, their Flames box gets reassigned to somebody else. Do students have any idea that this is happening? I don't know,
They
right?
shouldn't be voting there if they don't live on the campus, right?
So you're just talking about yet another question that's in my mind, right? Okay, so, right, so one of the questions is, they may be putting down in their SDR a Flames box number, that might even be a legitimate Flames box number, but it's not their Flames box number anymore. And therefore, when the people in the postal system at Liberty get that, they say Flames box number doesn't match the name, back it goes, right?
Right.
We also think that students may have no idea what their Flames box number is,
Well, we know that.
right? So they put down a number, but it doesn't match anything. From Liberty's perspective, it's just a number, but we would have no way of knowing that, right? So that's a problem.
Our direction from the state does not require us to see a mailed item to a person with a Flames box address on it. Our directions from the state say they can just certify that that is their box. Is that correct? Thinking if at the same day registration process,
Right.
they came in with an envelope that had a Flames box address on it, that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
But I don't know that we're required to require that of them.
no, I think the voter has to give you their accurate address.
Right.
And we don't have a way, just like in any other registration, we don't have a way of double checking that in any way, other than the fact that we send them a notice, post them giving us this. And if the notice goes through, great. If it doesn't, then,
But it may be that people are voting who should not be voting, and B, we're getting wrong numbers from them.
Yeah.
Or there's some other reason. But what do we do about it?
I haven't come up to solutions yet. We can discuss that. But I think it's important to point out two other things. One is, like you're saying, we may well have students who believe that as long as they're a Liberty student, they vote at 302. And they keep coming back there every election, despite the fact that they have moved off campus. And we've tried to highlight, again, highlighting with Ken Craig, that that is not the case. They've moved off campus, they need to vote where they live, according to their precinct assignment wherever they live. And they have so far, as you may be aware, been very reluctant to help us with the process of getting students to re-register when they move off campus. They move off campus, they have to file paperwork with the school. But somehow in that paperwork, there is no voter registration application. And we've been pressing them to put that in there so that they will update their registration, give us a fresh address, a correct address. But so far, I don't think they haven't been doing it. And obviously, when they leave school altogether, we want them to do that again. If they move out of state, I like to get a cancellation from them, right? If they move somewhere else in the state, I'd like to give them the opportunity to register with wherever they're moving. And they happen to stay in Lynchburg, that's great, but they won't be living on campus for sure. So they need to give us an application that tells us where they are living.
Could another voter challenge their vote based on their SDR, based on the Flames box not being accurate?
I suspect that I will toss that question to our resident expert. I think you'd have to do that in real time, right? The challenge of the vote has to happen at the precinct, right, in real time, right?
And I don't produce enough information.
Unless you happen to be a student that lives next to the other student.
Or they have, or have that box number.
Or you're the order of that box number.
So there's part of, we talked about this. If you send them a piece of a mail like this on an SIP registration, you send them whatever, and the person in the post office says, this is not the same name, even though it's the same box number, that's gonna come back to you, and it goes into the whole process of undeliverable.
Yeah.
But the only thing they have to do is come and vote,
Yeah,
and then they're back active again.
right.
And you don't know.
Right, you have no way of checking,
Yeah.
catching that, right?
And then there's the issue with the ones that live at a Liberty Annex
Right,
that are considered on-campus students with a Flames box number, but they live not at 1971 University Boulevard and should be voting in another precinct.
Once upon a time, those box numbers were different and separate from
yeah,
the ones that all live at University Boulevard. So we had a different street address and box number.
Yeah,
And
now
that
I think
happens
it's all
right.
1971
yeah,
University Boulevard.
right, so I think that was the other point that I wanted to raise, is I think we have students that have a physical address, a residential address, which is in the annex, which is in 303. It's not sitting, in 302, it's outside the university, but the university considers them on-campus students, so they give them a Flames box number. So for these students, we would have to have a residential address and a mailing address. And because they're a residential address, it's not the mailing address, right? So,
Which is what we had to do with Randolph College.
Right.
University of Lynchburg and
But
Virginia
it's
Seminary.
not just,
right, because not just Liberty.
is there any kind of procedure we should think about adopting for our election officers going into a primary or an election? I can't think of grafting anything onto the state requirements. That's may not be our ability to do that.
Well, they get to vote where they are registered regardless of where they live. So long as it's within a time frame in the what ifs.
This is really their registration we're talking.
So I think the process that we might want to do, at least with our chiefs, is to let them know that this is really 302 and who's got the annex, is that Sheffield?
It's at Oakville, Phil's Road.
Yeah, well, I know where the
Yeah,
annex is.
Yeah, Sheffield, yes.
So at least those two chiefs should be made aware of where those folks are supposed to be, and regardless of where they are registered, we need to get the registration changed. We can do that on election day. It would be nice if we could get a little more traction with Liberty and do it ahead of election day. But until that happens, I think we're gonna have to deal with our chiefs so that they understand the situation, so we can try and make some changes. It just adds more paperwork to us. I don't know why Liberty won't let us go in and teach the students some of these nuances, because they certainly don't know.
Yeah, I think Kenny Craig is more amenable than he used to be, because I think he understands the problem, but I can't say that he said, sure, that's great, let's go fix it. So it may require some additional conversations like I've been had in the past to help motivate everybody to do the right thing, so. Okay, other questions on this particular analysis? Okay. As we spoke about, this is going back now a few months, I had kind of sent to you an emergency backup polling place for each of the polling places that we have. And the response was, it seemed rather distributed, meaning potentially required a lot more polling place agreements and a little more vetting of each of the places. I think the mindset or the thought was to go back and try and use some of our existing precincts as backups for other precincts. That is, on election day, if we had a problem we would actually just relocate a precinct into a precinct, or a polling place that has enough space to hold 2 polling places as opposed to 1. So I put together a matrix here that, addresses that idea, that thought. And then there's nothing, I don't think you guys have any decisions to make on this at this point, but I just want to make sure that you are aware that it's there and you should look at it. As a high level commentary on this, this layout does assume that you are going to be moving away from the public library as a primary polling location. And you're going to be now doing 301 into West Lynchburg Baptist Church. With that assumption in mind, you now have freed up that public library space, and it could be a backup for 7 out of the 18 precincts.
Yeah, that's a very good idea.
So,
We would need to make a point to reserve the library for that day
absolutely.
regardless.
So, right, so this would be, if you ultimately do approve this plan, then yes, part of our thing would be, we would need to make sure that we have arrangements for that space on election days. And then I think for the other ones, we would probably need to add an addendum to their polling place agreement that says, in the event of an emergency, you would be willing to serve as an additional space within your location for backup of another polling place. The ones that we've selected here, pretty much all are big enough that they would be able to conduct a second polling place elsewhere. Some of them actually, we already have had 2 different locations, and so we probably could, choose our primary and then still have a place for a backup. But I'll let you look at that and think about it, and then you can, approve that at some later date.
I think this is very useful. I think it's very much the right direction that we should be going in. And if you can do those additional steps of amendment to the polling place agreement with locking in on the Liberty potential one, it's, I think, item for us to approve. And we need to have this in place before our next election is possible.
Yep.
So it would be very useful to do it.
And you see, I've highlighted in yellow the one place where we don't really have a great backup. Montview Ballroom, of course, is up on the 3rd floor. I told them, look, I have generators that I bring, but I can't run a generator up onto the 3rd floor. There is a outdoor balcony area there, and they said, well, we could maybe get a generator out there. But whatever, I mean, it's something to think about, but I've also suggested they need to think about an alternative location on campus in the event that that building for some reason was shut down, due to a bomb threat or a fire. I mean, we already had a fire alarm happen in the previous election there, right? So we had to literally close the poll for a little bit. So I told them they really need to think about an alternative location on campus. So
On either on a different power circuit or with a building generator.
yeah,
I was curious that I know they've got their natatorium, their swimming and diving facility around on the other side of Candler's Mountain Road. I don't know if that has a space where you could set up in that facility. It may well be on a different power grid.
yeah. So what I did was I asked AEP to take a look at where their circuits were in relation to the actual outline of 302. And they do have a second circuit feeding on the northeast side of Highway 460. So that side of the highway, they do have another circuit. So I don't know if there's anything on that side. And by the way, that may not be the right answer either, but I did ask them just to see what they would say on that. So apparently Liberty is serviced by 2 circuits. One on the east side of 460 and the other on the other side. So
So would that mean that East Campus is on a different circuit from main campus?
what I understand is, yes, that this campus on the east, well, I don't know, if it's the east side.
On the other side of 460.
Other side, the opposite side of 460,
They,
yeah.
they call it East Campus,
Yeah.
the other side
Yeah.
from
So
Vine.
that is on a separate circuit. So if for some reason, heaven forbid, AEP circuit went down and half of Liberty went down, that other side could potentially be still up. So,
They may have a community space over there that could work. We would need to investigate that.
yeah, but I think the Vine Center is still on this side of 460.
Yeah.
I think it's still on this side, yeah.
We could always set them up in the parking garage. Keep them out of the rain and not out of the wind.
Yeah.
But I do think they have a community room over there for the East Campus students, so I think we would need to check on that and see whether or not I'm remembering it correctly or incorrectly.
And it may depend on the election too, because as you know, even with the size we had at Monty Ballroom, when you have an election like we just had this last November, we needed every bit of that space.
Yeah.
Lines in, down the, winding through the whole building, so.
It'd be nice if we could approve this backup list by 2 meetings from now.
April. Yeah, prior to beginning of our voting.
So if you want us, board members, to do anything, let us know.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want, as a preliminary step, if you want me to reach out and try and see if we can update these polling places, I mean, I don't know if we need to wait till you officially approve it to do that, but let me know your thought there. That would be the next step, I think.
Update the policies.
So the polling place agreement, so for example, right now, we've set it up so,
And add addendum on the ones that.
yeah. So 305 is backing up for 304. I want to make sure that 305 knows that, should 304 have an emergency, we're asking them to, out dedicate another space as a polling place so that 304 could live in there.
If you and I want to talk to Matt about an addendum, that's fine.
Okay, sure, happy to do that.
Also, I want to consider something else for Lake Metal. The public library is 2.7 miles away. Did you look at the United Methodist Church there?
So,
It's less than a mile.
we can talk about that. I have to go back to my notes as to why I ended up with the configuration I did here. I did go back and forth quite a bit, so there were some other alternatives.
Yeah, I meant to send an email when I first saw this, but okay. Yeah.
Now, so one more thing, just so you're aware, what's my rubric to get to this? I just don't want you to miss this. My understanding is that the polling place can be no more than 1 mile from the precinct that it's backing up. As per code. And I say that doesn't say it specifically about backup precincts, but if you go into JIRA and you actually request a backup polling place, as we unfortunately have to do that, it says, is it within the 1 mile? So they're expecting it to stay within 1 mile. Now, what does that 1 mile rule mean? So the way I interpreted it to me was any part of that precinct has to be within 1 mile straight line of its backup polling place. So as you know, if you look at the precinct maps, right, they're like this, right? So what I did was I literally on a map, and then I took my 1 mile and I made sure that, this polling place was within 1 mile of any edge of that precinct.
Right, that makes sense.
Right, so just so you know, that was my rubric.
Yeah.
Right or wrong, that's how I worked this out.
We have discussed that one time previously.
Yeah. Okay.
My question is, considering when we moved when we moved Fairview Christian to Bass,
Yeah.
we had to go through this process with the Attorney General and
Yep.
elect. Do we need to do something like that when we set up the backup polling places so that we're not in a cramp? We gotta change our location next week.
So in the event of we actually triggering this, let's just say we have a water main break and they tell us, hey, it won't be fixed for 2 weeks and we've got an election next week. I would submit a backup polling place, request to elect and give them the circumstances and they would approve it on a backup on an emergency basis. I don't think we'd have trouble, especially if I can check the box that says it's within 1 mile. I think that would get approved. I would have to put that ticket in. this is what we're doing and why. And unfortunately, we may even end up doing that with the two we're talking about today, just because it's too tight for us to get the Attorney General to come back and tell us, no objection, whatever. We'll see, we'll have to see how fast we can do this.
That's the nature of emergency.
Yeah.
And I think what you're also saying implicitly is, despite our putting this together as a matrix of backups, we don't have to have this backup plan approved by the elected.
Yeah, I don't think they would need to approve this. I think it's just for us to know what we're gonna do in the event if something happens.
Right.
And then should we have to actually action it, I would then have to put in the paperwork to tell like, hey, this is what we're asking you to agree to.
I was just wondering if there was some way we could get a step ahead of the game. And maybe just make sure elect has a copy of this, so that we would say, we have an issue here, we want to go with backup location that we sent to you last year. I mean, I don't know if that would be helpful or not.
Yeah, I'm happy to send it off. I don't know what they do with it.
Yeah.
I'm just asking the question. I don't know if it's a good idea or not. I'm just trying to help us get ahead of the game if it's possible.
Goes in the storage where the Raiders lost Ark goes.
Right, unfortunately. Okay, any other questions on this? I don't want to belabor this too long. Just want to make sure you saw it.
Let's, ongoing projects.
Ongoing projects, okay, walking through this, starting at the top, we have finally gotten the schedule. They tell us they'd have that for the counter improvements to happen on our grant that we've had now in the works for a couple of years, starting the third week of February. So we'll see if they hit that schedule. I've told them they do have a hard deadline to get this done before we start early voting for the primary. Separation of duties document, you guys have reviewed this now, and I think you're going to turn it into a policy format, or it's, I think, next step is in your hands to decide how you want to express that attention. Page program is still waiting. Now we have a new deputy registrar. Now I can spread the load a little bit among some people, so we'll work that out before we get to the election. Backup precinct review and approval. You've now seen my latest matrix. And so you can put that on your agenda at whatever time you feel appropriate. Poll book renewal replacement. You've now seen a couple of demos of different types of poll books. I've continued the conversation with Calvin Garrett. It would be the cheapest option for us at this time. And I will, can't put that into a public format because of the, requirement to keep the details under wraps until we make a decision. But anyway, you'll be aware, I'll make you aware of kind of where we stand with some of that. Precinct 301 relocation, that is in your hands for approval. Precinct 304, we finally got sign off from the Department of Elections. They now considering Heritage High School as the permanent location for 304. Precinct 203 location, again, in your hands for your decision today. Deputy registrar open position. We now have hired a deputy registrar, so that's actually a closed item. I have scheduled that scanner recalibration for that one that was giving us levels 4 and 3. That'll happen this coming week. Decommissioning of OVO voting machines. I think you're up to date with that. I've sent out some inquiries as to who might want some of our old voting machines. You saw that. And I think they would like someone to bring them down to them at the VIVA conference. And the two other items that popped up on our list, nothing surprising. These are annual items, the LESS certification. And as we discussed, there's a 3-stage approach to that. I'll be passing you our current status, and then we can discuss our next steps in terms of what we need to do for that. And the VSSP is out there a little bit further, but it's due August 29th, and we'll need to certify that as well. Let me get to that deadline. Okay. My only announcements were the ones I've already made, which is that we're going to be closing on the 17th, not the 20th. Sorry about the typo there. And that we've appointed Trish Jones as our new deputy.
Thank you. Let's move into the old business. The first item for old business is relocation of the polling places. Number 203 Jubilee, and 301 Public Library. For those of you who are here, you have been following this. We have, Jubilee has withdrawn from being a, so we conducted an investigation. Both of those polling places are within my 6 polling places of responsibility. And reporting to the board, I went through a survey of 203, the entire 203 area, all public spaces. I reached out to community leaders. 2 of our election officers were particularly helpful, Brenda Farber and Clara Jones, in reaching out to people. We identified finally that Greater Brookville Baptist Church, which is on Florida Avenue, very visible, would be a suitable location. So I'm proposing that we relocate 203 to that location. For 301, we had previously discussed extensively that the polling place was no longer in the precinct. The public library was no longer in the precinct. And so we needed to relocate that. There had been some talk with the previous city council person from that area and the present city council person from that area. We looked at a number of churches as options, and we identified West Lynchburg Baptist Church as a very viable option. Both of the places we're talking about have good parking, good visibility, and convenience for our staff. Greater Brookville does have its room at sort of ground level of the church. There's a ramp going into it that's accessible. And both precincts have good ADA points, and they meet our ADA requirements. So I propose that we adopt those as our polling places for 203 and 301. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I have not been inside West Lynchburg Baptist during this discussion. I've been in it for years ago. Now, I've seen like 3 ramps around the place. Is the entrance, there's a parking lot, and then there's a cross street, and then there's the entrance there.
It's the parking lot that's off the cross, what you might be calling, or is the cross street the one behind it, you're calling it cross street?
No, it's the one-way Memorial Avenue down the side of the
Yes,
church.
it's on that, there's an entrance on that side of the church, one-way street.
Okay, and is there parking there for him?
There's parking, there's.
On the church side of the one-way street? So voters could go there, they can also use the parking lot on the other side of the street, which is not a problem. And I have seen, I think there are 2 ramps into the building on that side.
And it's a pretty level with ground.
Yeah.
And space.
And I have not seen the inside of it. I haven't seen the room they're going to use, but I trust that you have.
And good touch.
Yeah.
And their facilities. Dan, any comments about?
No, that's right. I mean, it's basically, it's just a straight entrance into the polling place. So the nice thing is you don't have to go through a whole bunch of things. You just walk into that side door of the church and just, it's a little bit of a ramp down. And you're right into the place and right out. So it's pretty simple.
And in Greater Brookville, the ramp just goes straight into the room. We have facilities with larger rooms, but I think just from my looking at it when we were over there, that it's an adequate room to, considering the size of the precinct, I don't have any problem with
It's
that.
our smallest
idea.
precinct.
So, and I like the people. They want to be of service.
The minister is an election officer.
And he's also a former state trooper and he's very imposing.
It's really a good experience.
Yeah, so
No,
I'm happy.
we had a lot of good exposure and discussion.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm on board with both of them.
Okay, shall we have a motion and a second? All in favor?
I,
It pass. Let's move on to the,
and then we'll automatically start the process.
I will start the process tomorrow.
Thank you.
good. And Dan has already greased the skids somewhat with.
Yeah, with attorney.
You're waiting. So, Dan, any further information on the vacant deputy registrar?
Yes, the position is no longer vacant. It's no longer vacant.
I do have to commend you on the extensive process that you went through in terms of doing it and your use of the criteria that you used and sharing those with us. That was very, very capably done.
Thank you.
My only comment to Dan was that I hated to lose Trish as a chief precinct officer, but the fact, characteristics that made her an excellent chief precinct officer is what's going to make her an awesome deputy registrar. So, you know,
I say, but you know what the bad part is?
tell me.
That at least as a chief precinct officer, I only had to see you once a day.
On election day, I came in twice with donuts that I didn't share with you.
Trained to bring donuts. Yeah.
Only,
But you know where to find me.
only, I know where to find you.
Okay, let's move on to new business. We have, first item of new business is appointment of election officers. Now you have a report on that.
I'm giving each of you a list.
What's in
The names of
materials?
the people, yes, 71 people have sent in applications, and I would say the motion to approve them as election officers for 1 year. To the end of February next year.
We do need to discuss the 1, 2, and 3-year appointment process, but we can extend appointments after we've had that discussion. I would like to, this question was raised before the meeting, and that is that neither of the parties has certified these affiliations. So I think we would be good to amend the motion to say that the party affiliations are pending certification by the parties.
Do you accept the
As soon as I type it. Okay.
So accepted. Good. I worry that 1 year is a short time just to approve election officers. Is there a reason why
We have always done it for 1 year, and we have been discussing for a while that we want to take advantage of the 1, 2, and 3 year.
cycles?
Yeah, and just extend these, particularly with chiefs. But you know, I think 1 year is good for new people, for people that we think may need a little more seasoning before we're comfortable with them. But I think we just haven't determined what the 2 year, what would be a 3-year appointment, the criteria for that.
So, before we vote, this does not close the door on our approving more election officers.
No. Still get more
And
applications.
we still,
Yeah,
We need lots more.
we need to double, if not triple, this list. But this is the first, if we use Dan's favorite word, tranche of election officers.
Dan, do you have any comment on this?
He's not listening.
Yeah. do notice that we've got one deputy registrar as an election officer.
I know. I have 5 applications from her because she likes the clone them.
Dan,
So I left her.
Dan, do you have any further comment on the appointment of election officers?
No, I think it's a good idea to do the 1 year and then roll over everybody. I think in the past, you actually used the opportunity to roll over wherever you had some difficulty with some officer, you know, to kind of, address that specifically before you made that rollover decision. I think that's probably a good idea.
Betty, yours was a motion, and I think
With the amendment on the parties.
he seconded.
Did he second or did he just amend? Did you second?
I amended and
I was fishing for the second.
I thought you seconded it. I'll second it with the amendment
Okay.
All right.
as amended.
All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's passed.
Okay. All of that, just.
Mr. Troxel, would you report on our issue of delegation of duties to the general registrar?
We had a closed meeting. We went through the code and the GREV, looking at what was stated as specifically as duties of the registrar, specifically as duties of the electoral board, and what could go either way or both ways. And having gone through all that material, we are putting together a policy, more narrative style than this point by point list that we had and that we presented.
I like.
Well, some of that is operational, which is separate from what we're going to do with the policy. But that's what.
There was some discussion of using the job description categories too as the focus of the narrative with the point by point added to that.
Well,
Is that a combination that might work?
Well, what I'm going to present is not something that will be set in stone and you must approve it. I'm going to give you something for discussion.
Okay. Let's try to have that on the next agenda.
Right, I just knew I couldn't get it done today.
Yeah. Okay. Report received. We have a topic of the training of election officers for the junior primary. Who wants to speak to that? Well, I think we do need to start putting together the training.
Yes, we were.
Dan, what are your thoughts about putting together?
I think I like to work things top to bottom. So I think you should decide what types of training you want to do for what specific, kinds of officers. I'm just nothing, unusual, new officers or returning officers. But I think, my opinion would be you should focus the training on what you expect of those officers at the level that they're at. And so that would be my input, whatever that's what.
Yeah, my own thinking was that we had a training plan for the November election that was pretty good. It missed, we had problems with some materials. And I think we should restate that training plan from the November election. Skewing it towards the primary for June and focus on any improvements that need to be made from that training plan. And how we plan to schedule those sessions and what materials we use.
We have new people coming in. We're going to have at least one new chief. And they will need more training than people who have done their specific jobs before. So we are looking at, I guess you want to call training from scratch. And then the other one, you can look at remediation for people who learned as much as their brains would absorb and still need to learn more. I think most of our chiefs at this point, there are just some specific recurring things that they would like for the board to focus on in the training. And I think we need to look at how do we bring on board new chiefs and new assistant chiefs? They're going to need more training than the regular chiefs, the veteran chiefs. But there are some things that the veteran chiefs would really like for us to focus on, even though we have attempted to focus on them in the past. We just need, I think we need to look at different approaches to the same areas if necessary, just to try and make everybody comfortable with what they're doing.
Well, maybe I can look at what the plan was and the materials we have with Trish and Dan.
Keep talking. I'm listening.
With Trish and Dan, put together a sort of summary of where we are and what we may propose to do. Trish, your thoughts?
I was thinking, what would it look like to send out a survey of sorts to chiefs and assistant chiefs and say, what do you need help with? What do you think your weak areas are? So that, you know, you can kind of touch, I mean, you're probably not gonna be able to touch every single thing, but if, you know, 12 of 18 chiefs say, well, I need help with the envelopes at night.
I think that's the number we had, 12 of 18 wanted help with the envelopes.
Yes, or whatever, you know, so you know what to focus on.
Yeah, and Betty had done somewhat of a survey for the Christmas party.
I asked the chiefs that before,
Right.
and I have the results.
And share those with Trish. Trish, maybe look at those and think about, you and I can discuss a survey going beyond that if we need to.
Okay.
We don't want to overwhelm them, but we do need to get that input. And we need to get people thinking about it.
Yeah. Which is specifically what I was talking about. Veteran chiefs, we need to focus on particular areas. The new chiefs, we're going to have to give them the whole schmeal. And I'm not sure we can do that in a single 2-hour training session just for the new chiefs.
And that may be a situation where, you know, the extra help, you know, schedule a time and come by the office. You know, and we can work through things, answer questions, whatever that needs to
And
look
we
like.
need to keep reflecting on the stuff we saw in Canvas after the last election.
Yes.
Where the problem.
And Dropboxes.
Right.
And SDRs.
Yeah. SDR is a big area.
Um,
But the interchange between the reports we get from the chiefs and making sure that it's complete and getting the canvas done. Okay, shall we, in that context, should we discuss when our next meetings are?
Training?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is our next meeting the first Thursday of March?
March 6th?
March 6th.
I'm already scheduled for a meeting here on March 6th. I postponed the trip.
And
So that we can see
so there've been some discussion about possible. We're good on that. Good on an April meeting, first Thursday.
Well, I think the question that was raised was, do we want to have the April meeting the first Thursday, or do we need to push it closer to early voting? And I don't know that we ever got that resolved.
I knew there was some. Is there early voting is May 2nd?
yes.
Well, I have never liked to have a meeting just for the sake of having a meeting. If we have agenda items that we need to deal with, then
Well, for sure, we'll be starting the training cycle by the April meeting. We really have to lock in our training cycle.
we need to decide it. We need to have our training schedule decided.
Right.
And even if we don't start training until after early voting begins, that still only gives us 45 days to get all the training done.
That's right. So I think keeping the date in April, the first Thursday. Is kind of
Yeah, remembering that idea had come up, but I'm good with the first Thursday.
okay, we're good to go. Any other new business?
First Thursday of April. You were saying?
Yes.
April.
Yes.
So we're having one in March. We're going to have, the April meeting will be the first Thursday in April.
Only
And
third.
I'm assuming we'll have one the first Thursday in May. So April 3rd is the date.
That'll be the day before early voting starts.
Exactly.
May 1st is the first Thursday.
Okay, so April 3rd. May Day, which means we're all in trouble. May Day.
Okay, any other new business? Public comments, any comments from?
Just thank you for what you all do. It just boggles my mind, all the details. How much is involved in voting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
Is it likely to be a dual primary in June?
That's a great question, and I think that's entirely possible. So I was, one of the things about training was we may need to think about doing primary training, like we did last year.
It's highly probable that there's going to be a state level Republican and state level Democratic primary.
Yeah,
We've received no notice of local primaries for local
Yeah.
positions.
Yeah, we may need to have a primary for the Republican lieutenant governor.
There is a deadline. Jeff, you may want to remind Randy about this. There is a deadline coming up to say whether there's going to be a local primary for the two, the House of Delegates position.
Yeah, well, really, we are effectively required to adopt the primary method for each office.
Exactly.
But of course, that's separate from whether there would actually be a primary, and we won't know till, for sure, at least until just after the middle of March, and it may be until early April before we would know, depending on who files.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We really only have, I think, one local position up for election. Is that right?
no, the constitutional office.
Are the constitutional officers up? Oh, clerk of court.
Court, sheriff, Commonwealth attorney, treasurer,
Clerk.
commissioner of revenue. I think there are 5 constitutional offices.
So I have one more question. On the 71 folks that you guys approved today, the election officials of the 71, can you give a ratio of the unofficially affiliated versus the
It's
non?
on the end of the list.
Well,
I
he
don't
doesn't
have
have
the
the list, but yeah, there are 14 who have asked to represent the Democratic Party, 30 that have asked to represent the Republican, and then 27 chose to be non-affiliated.
And some of those non-affiliated were suspiciously Democratic.
Well, so when I sent the list to both party chairs, I sent their party requestees and to both of them. To see, because last year Denise did recognize some Democrats and asked them, and they said they would represent the Democratic Party, so that was good.
It is useful to have party representation.
Yes.
Other questions, concerns?
I just have a question about, I didn't understand exactly what the same-day registration mailing thing is. Is that something that you mail out to someone's address after they've same-day registered and voted?
right. People got a confirmation notice that says you're registered, right? We send that out. And also we'll send out a provisional notice for other things. So we didn't try and line it up with what the mailing was for, but when we got a mailing back, that is returned by the post office. We said, gee, we wonder if this person did a same day registration. And the reason we asked that question is because it was only like maybe a month, or maybe a month and a half, 2 months, right, from the time that they've actually same day registered. And we sent the notice and then we got it back. So did someone move in that time period, or did we have problems with addresses? And that's what we were fishing for. And so that's kind of what our analysis is suggesting, is that in some cases, we have problems getting good addresses for people in their same registrations.
So, from the standpoint of election officers, I'm dealing with this stuff, in recent. So people are registering to vote and they're coming in. And we're sending out a mailer, so we're mailing something to them later, and they're no longer there, which means it could be a fraudulent registration. Very concerned about as a citizen, that sort of thing these days. I don't imagine there's really no mechanism to deal with that situation except having a real ID instead of a bill or something.
I mean, this is what David was talking about, right? What are our remediation actions? And we do have some boundaries and limitations.
Our registrar associations or electoral board associations in the state saying anything about this to the assembly and the state government? Because this is really a loophole, a danger zone that they're condoning.
Look, I think you're going down the right path. The way the code is written right now, we're dependent upon the post office to validate. And I don't know, there's a lot of things we've been discussing about how can we improve this. But it does take legislation, like there was legislation that was proposed and killed in this last session to actually validate social security numbers against a known good source. And that bill got killed. So, that's one level of validation that we could use to help with that.
I think most election-related laws were killed in this session because apparently the majority of the members of the General Assembly as it is currently constituted are happy with the laws that they have on the books. Mind you, they've never been registrars or election officers, but from their perspective, they're happy.
Well, it's also, the laws changed so much 2, 3 years ago. It's only been in place for a short time. And I think they're still feeling their way. I think there has to be sort of a groundswell of problems to change things. But clearly we're identifying it. Certainly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyways, I just wanted to make sure I had this right. The
Now,
practical application of the law seems to be.
well, it's been a logistical headache to get these addresses. That's really a big problem. And it was somewhat of a nightmare in the canvass process. Because our election officers who were staffing the canvass had to go back and call a lot of people to verify addresses, get addresses, that sort of thing.
We did have a bunch of same-day registration people who did not get their provisional ballot approved because we did not have a valid address on them, and they did not give us any information so that we could get a valid address from them. So we're doing the best, the best that we can to get accurate information, but there are just some things that, in order to follow the law, we can't hold up the process.
Right.
But they got to vote.
They did, the ones who gave us addresses got to vote.
Okay, all
I
right.
mean, if we got what we felt were valid addresses.
Okay,
If we did not get a valid address, we did not approve their provisional ballot.
okay.
But if we did get what we felt were valid addresses, then unless there was something else that created a problem, then their provisional ballot was approved.
And they do the provisional ballot and then they go get to vote. It's not
No.
after the fact.
No.
It's part of the process, but they do the same day registration
Right.
with an election officer. And then once they fill that out and they get screened,
Okay,
then
then that's
they're allowed to get that.
Same day registration
our provision.
is a provisional
Okay.
ballot.
All right, and that's set aside.
Same day registrations do not vote through the scanner at the precinct.
Okay,
They come to the electoral board during canvass, and we treat them like other provisional ballots. So that the election officers and the chiefs don't have to make those decisions. The electoral board does when we have time and are not under the gun of a long line.
okay, thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna re-explain that so that way it's more clear a little bit, just to jump on the piggyback. That was great. To verify the address, the first step is when they come to vote, basically they want to do a same day registration, which is the provisional. All of that comes back to us at the registrar's office. The registrar's office put that into the computer, which is Veris. Then it goes to the electoral board to canvass. Veris basically validates if it's a legit address. So if it's not a legit address, then the electoral board basically gets to deny it.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say
All
that
right,
part.
thanks.
Important step, but.
Yeah.
However, the address is validated. When I said we think it's an accurate address, we've been given input by the.
Veris also tells us when they voted somewhere else.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, any further business? Is there,
Jeff.
Jeff?
Yeah, I have some public comments. First, I have some more on electronic poll books. One vendor's poll book system includes data storage in the cloud. The State Election Department's 2023 electronic poll book certification standard does allow for this, at least for early voting. But it also lists additional requirements for cloud storage. Even if all of those requirements are met, there would still be a potential problem. Cloud storage requires a connection to the internet. Some election deniers have used connection to the internet as a justification for claiming an election is invalid. That is not just a problem in the past. This fall, Virginia's election of a new governor will be closely watched nationally. Depending on the results, election deniers may be out in force at the national, state, and local levels. Okay, secondly, the election office website has one error. It says 2 electoral board members represent the current governor's political party. Actually, it's the party with the highest number of votes for governor at the last election, as provided in Code Section 24.2.106. And then I have some items that other people have asked me to bring to the electoral board. There's one candidate and one other person have told us that candidates attempting to file statements of organization with the Lynchburg election office have been turned away. The question is that correct?
We have to take that up with the registrar's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know who that would be, but certainly we can discuss.
Yeah, I don't know if those 2 people wanted their names known, but I can, if you want, I can get back to them and ask them if they want to.
Sure,
That's not
absolutely.
an electoral board
Yeah.
function.
Right, okay, yeah, okay, understood, and I'll, you want me to get back to them and see who?
Yeah,
they
sure.
Want to say who they are?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
I would just say, Jeff, that I know that Dan is very helpful to everyone who wants to become a candidate, so long as they follow whatever the rules are. Dan is helping them, so I'm not sure what the issue is there, but either they or you on their behalf should talk to Dan and find out exactly what.
Yeah, we'll try to figure it out.
In terms of.
And then I have some questions from a different person. I may have missed this in the registrar's report, but that person asked the current status of security upgrade, if the cameras are operational or if there's still a need for a new switch.
No, the cameras are operational.
Right, okay,
That's in my report.
yeah, okay. I thought it may have been in one of the reports. And the other question, or well, two questions, about the PAGE program, the number of students who participated, for how many hours, and if what it cost, if anything, for the PAGE program, and where that would be in the budget. And I realize that's several questions that probably would take some time to answer.
Volunteers. They don't get paid, so it doesn't impact the budget. Right, they're volunteers. Right, I think one of the few volunteers that are allowed, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the supervision of the program is part of deputy registrar responsibility, so that's just incorporated into the salary that's already being paid.
Yeah.
So there's no budgetary impact, as far as I know. But I did enjoy the pages that I ran across on election day. I think Trish had some really good pages. So it was worth the program.
Anything further, Jeff?
No. Thank
Any
you.
other business, any other comments?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? Have a meeting.
Peter, get to it.
I got another meeting, otherwise I'd stay.
See you, Peter.